forces you to rethink your identity. My journey isn't more or less extravagant than most other people's. The biggest thing for me has been just controlling how I perceive this situation. Again, can't control MS, but this can be a number of unpredictable, unexpected things, but you can control how you react to it. And that can be a foundation laying response if you give yourself the opportunity to be open to it. If you give yourself the opportunity to just smile through it or find the joy in whatever this unexpected, stressful thing is, because there is joy, and it may not be apparent right away, but the joy can just be in the possibility of a lesson to be learned.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
Well, we may as well start the episode off with some laughing. So, hey, today's guest is Jim Perona, and he's not your typical kind of a perform better guy, right? Because he can literally play a lesson for us. He's got his guitar set up there behind him. If you're listening, you can't see that, but just to set it up in your mind, he's a keynote artist, concert artist, and classical guitarist who helps people perform under pressure by turning authentic joy into real-world advantage. Trained at Northern Illinois University and the New England Conservatory, his path shifted after a multiple sclerosis diagnosis forced him to relearn his instrument and rethink how to show up when conditions aren't perfect. Now, Jim blends live guitar storytelling and mindfulness, or rather live guitar, storytelling, and mindfulness in his keynote concerts with one simple message. I love this. Joy isn't what comes after the pressure. It's what carries you through.
Wow.
And at the heart of it all is his wife and baby girl, keeping him grounded in what matters most. All right, brother. Well, good to have you, man. We're excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
What a great, I've never really thought of it that way. Joy isn't what comes after pressure, what carries you through it. So it's
beautiful,
something
right?
brand new. Very beautiful, but powerful. And I can't wait to get into that, because it's like my brain is like, it's like what do they call it? Data prediction error, right? I'm like, what? How does that even work? How joy, pressure, okay, anyway. So, hey, so thanks guys. We have our, Spartan race, May 31st. Spartan race, yeah, May 31st. Come join us. Again, Jim, if you want, I'm inviting all our guests. We'll see how many actually show up. You're welcome to come, or you can join the legion of guests that probably aren't going to show up. But anyway, right, May 31st, mentalkingmindfulness.com. Check it out. We'll have some fun. It's a great community building exercise. It's not about how great in shape you are. It's really about putting yourself out there, getting yourself off the couch, and just connecting with other like-minded people. Really, that's why we're holding this event. We're going to do our one breath grounding practice. So, find whatever, your eyes closed, eyes open. Maybe just stop what you're doing and just stand still for a moment and get still. And stillness starts with a nice big exhale out. Really get empty. Feel that emptiness for just a moment. Let's take a big giant inhale through your nose. Inhale a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit bigger. Let's hold that breath just for a moment. And then exhale out nice and slow and easy. All right. And maybe you're a little bit more here and now oriented and focusing on what matters. And if you tuned into the podcast, then open up your ears. And here we go. Jim Perona, everybody, not Corona. That was it. That was in the notes, John.
Yeah. Hey, I know. It was how to pronounce his name.
I'm going to regret this immediately.
Oh, there we go.
I'm not going to sing the tune, but I'm just grateful you didn't go right into the replacing my last name to the tune of My Sharona.
I was thinking that.
My Sharona.
And
John's gonna sing.
There you go. You're gonna go to your electric drum set once the cameras are off, and you're gonna bang that one out.
That's right.
Half the time, because I get that at least a few times a month for the past 41 years now of my life. And usually half the time they'll say, do you get that a lot? Am I the first one to do it? And I always try to think of polite ways to say, you are like the fucking millionth person to say that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, right?
No, you should be like, you're number 21,760.
Yeah, right.
Now,
You know what I mean? Like,
well, now they're going to listen to the show and be like, man, I thought I was so original.
yeah, exactly. You're not. All right, listener who thinks that. Okay, and we love you. But thanks for being here.
Well, hey man, we read that signature line, Jim. You say joy doesn't come after pressure, that it actually carries you through it. Let's talk about that. When did you realize this was true? What does it mean to you?
The biggest illuminating moment of that for me was when I was between miles 21 and 26.2 of getting through my first marathon.
Wow. I've been there.
Yeah. And this, there's, maybe we can go into this later, but this was my first marathon. It was a 2023 Bank of America Chicago Marathon. And it was 584 days after my MS diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
And, I've since learned that around mile 21, that's actually the pretty typical point where a lot of our bodies break down especially if it's our first marathon.
Yeah.
But I was catastrophizing, and this is a big part of why I've gotten so much more, how redundant is this, mindful about mindfulness, for lack of a better way to say it. But it's because I'm so prone to catastrophizing.
Like many, like I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting better. I think it's like, that's one thing to mention, getting better. But yeah, go ahead.
Will
Jim.
and I both catastrophized this morning. We both screwed up different parts of the business, and we're like
I'm still upset about it. I don't want to. I'm still upset. Now you just bitter the entire conversation, Sean.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Push out the negative energy, guys.
Go away. Go away.
Maybe even the tiniest little, even if it's just the tiniest clerical errer, is like, that's going to lead to this. That's going to lead to this.
That's exactly.
Our business is done. Our life is over.
My bank account is draining.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That shitty rabbit hole, man. Oh God.
Okay. That's catastrophizing in a nutshell right there. I love it. I love it. Yes. Okay. Keep going, Jim, please.
So while that was happening, when I reached that point, I'm thinking, okay, I'm experiencing these aches and pains and these sores in places in my body. I didn't know I could cramp at that part of my body. Like, what is this? And I started thinking, am I running myself into a bad MS relapse? And I'm also thinking, I had joined Team MS, the official running team of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. And part of that is you do the fundraising campaigns. And I was part of a team and my individual fundraising got up to a little over $4,000, which that was so meaningful to me. And I'm thinking every cent that these people have earned and kindly, out of the goodness of their hearts, donated, that's on the line. And they'll never forgive me if I don't cross that finish line. And when in reality, I'm running my first marathon, but I also have MS. Like they'll be understanding, but that's not how that catastrophizing rabbit hole works in the moment. And so what I did, I called my wife. And I just kind of stopped. I stopped trying to jog, even walk. I said, babe, I don't know. I shared my fears, what was going through my head. Am I running myself into a relapse that could end up making me a less capable version of myself for weeks and who knows how long to come? And she said, just finish. Just even if you have to kind of hobble your way there, don't stop worrying about your fucking mile time. Right.
Yeah.
And what that did was, and I can appreciate this now looking back on it. It made me try to find joy in these last few miles, whatever that looked like. And for me, that looked like redefining success.
There you go.
Success is not getting my mile time, finishing the marathon in under 4 hours total. It's just crossing the line and crossing that finish line. And it became so every hobble, what made every little, step more palatable, more doable, was just in finding the joy. It's if you've ever been in that situation, any of those situations where you're just laughing about how ridiculous the moment feels. Like, can you believe this is what's happening right now? Like,
Yeah.
this is insane. But how can you not? Sometimes the last thing you could do, your last resort is to just laugh it off.
Yeah. Right.
And so I'm thinking it's so funny that like this inner part of my thigh is hurting that it's never hurt before. It's so crazy that like the entire left side of my body feels like it has this pins and needles feeling, like it's starting to numb up. But hey, I could still move. And look, I'm not the only one who's going through this anguish right now on a physical level.
Sure.
Some people have sat down and they have, they're getting the golf carts come out, the medical carts come out, and they're getting wheeled away. And I joined this community, this small community of other anguished marathon runners who we're all just kind of limping our way, and it's like we're looking at each other with that like, this is fucking nuts, right? Like, and I'm telling them stories about how when I used to teach guitar lessons, one of my students is a pediatrician who makes his living off of former endurance athletes, who now they need a lot of care for their ankle, for their knee, because they're kind of beaten to shit at this point. And my student would always tell me, Jim, don't ever run a marathon because there's barely any animals in nature who run for 26.2 miles consecutively. He's like, that's not normal. And so those were the kind of things that were going through my head. And it's like, can you believe we're doing this thing? And then can you believe there's like this Ironman thing and there's ultra marathons? People do this time, like at a multiple of what we're trying to do right now. And there's so much that's just ridiculous and hilarious and incredible about that. And so we're as me and a group of other people of varying from all over the world. That's the cool thing about the major marathons and the major cities. It's from people from all over the world and from so many age ranges, and everybody's story is so different. And we're at this point where we're just laughing it off. And it became this shared joy, this communal experience that was unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. Those last 5 miles were like life-changing in that regard.
They're commiserating.
Because we're getting through this goal, we're getting through this experience, and we're all trying to finish, and it's playing out not at all how we could have ever imagined. We're experiencing things physically we have never experienced before, but it's also manifesting into we're experiencing this mental state that we've never really experienced before.
Yeah.
We've heard about maybe or read in books or seen in movies, but now we're experiencing this. And there was this shared joy in everything I just spoke about, but there's also a shared joy in like we're discovering these new parts about ourselves. We could actually do this. We could feel this, and we can laugh about this. And that stuck with me. And I think about it all the time. And that's where that idea of authentic joy, like it carried us, it not only me, but it carried a small group of runners through this high pressure moment where, at least for me, I felt like everybody's money was on the line that donated, and amongst other things. So,
wow. And
I could tell you, I have a similar story, not so much in going through the joy and everything, but the pain of marathons. I've run 5 now.
Oh my God.
I'm not going to run anymore. But I can tell you, my first one, I was like, I don't know, 22, 23 years old. And one of my good buddies who had run a ton of them, he's like, I'll run the last 10 miles with you. I'll meet you at mile 16. I'll just jump into the race and I'll run the last 10 miles. So at mile 16, This is my first marathon. My long run for training for this race was 12 miles. Young and arrogant. And I get to mile 16, and Adam Weiner, my buddy who jumps in, he's like, "Hey man, how you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm rocking it, man. And I'm doing so awesome. I'm well ahead of pace, da da da." And about 3 miles later, I hit the wall and I start like creeping really, really slow. And then I start really like jogging, and I'm like, I'm not walking. And in my mind, and Adam is like, "John, just walk, man." And I was like, "Adam, I'm not fucking walking. I'm gonna run this thing." I went from being so joyed, so happy to see Adam, to just being pissed off at the world, and then pissed off that he was there with me. Poor guy, man. He ran the last 10 miles with me, and he dealt with my anger. But that's another story.
I think it's interesting, like when we put ourselves in such an incredible challenge, right? We really get to see ourselves, right? And this is what really, like, your buddy Jim was saying, it's like, oh, no other animal runs 26 miles or whatever, it's like, yeah, but we're like, not like other animals. Like, we got this fucking ego that we got to deal with. We really do. I mean, we really do. And that's why it's important to do hard shit, and challenge yourself constantly, because through that challenge, not only to get more skillful and develop more character, but a lot of that skill and character is developed because you start to develop a mindset of like, do I have what it takes? I need to keep doing what it takes. Oh my God, this is really who I am. Instead of the ego catastrophizing you mentioned at the beginning. John, you saw your ego like kind of screaming at you, "I'm not fucking walking." I'm like, I can see you doing that. I'm funny. And throwing a fit, like, "I'm not fucking walking, dude." Just
temperament.
I know, temperament. But it's like, I think that's it's an important message with all this. Right. But then on the other side of that, Jim, you brought up so brilliantly, and it just comes so naturally. Like when you get out of the negativity of the ego, and that's catastrophizing that moment, it just literally, shitting all over yourself. Should have done this, should have done that, or just like, and shitting also all on the entire experience, right? That you have signed up for, that you have set the goal for, but you really hit a very difficult physical, like, constraint, right? Or physical moment. And it's just like things really begin to wake up. And then joy comes online. So what was like, just take us a little bit deeper if you can with the joy. Like, how did that change your body, change your mind, change the moment? Because it's like, we have an idea. I think you'll be great for this, Jim. We have an idea what joy is, right? But then when you actually experience it from like the spirit of joy, right, is a whole nother thing. I mean, am I correct? I'd imagine. I don't know.
I love how you articulated that. And so that's the best way I can articulate it on my end is when I say authentic joy, to me, I define it as like a deeper type of joy where it is, Will, we've been talking before we went live here, we were talking about the term foundational.
Yes.
The type of joy that just kind of resets and repositions like your mindset.
Right.
And it makes,
what you think it's true. You know what I mean? You're right.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And so it reframes what was, so before, when the catastrophizing was happening, it was, oh my God, I'm running myself into an MS relapse that can have prolonged effects, and then then that rabbit hole starts. And then when the joy really kicked in, it was that every step got reframed as, I'm totally fucked for potentially days, weeks, and months ahead of time.
Yeah, it's true.
And I'm totally screwing over my family, because I'm going to be a less version of myself around them, but I'm totally screwing over my clients. Again, the catastrophizing rabbit hole. The joy reframed it from that to, I can't believe I think I'm going to finish this. I can't believe that in this discomfort, this physical discomfort, I'm connecting with people to the left of me, to the right of me, who are going through something very similar. And I can't believe I almost forgot to say this. One of those people was a man who was running with a prosthetic leg. He had, I forget the term, but his left leg was the hook.
The blade.
Blade.
Wow. Yeah, they're crazy.
And I looked over at him as we're both kind of hobbling on. I'm like, I feel bad and guilty as hell that I was feeling sorry for myself for me, because you are my fucking hero right now, man. And he looks over at me, and I wish I had gotten this guy's name, because he's made like a lasting impact on me. He looks over at me, he says, man, I'm just doing the best that I can.
There you go.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, right. And that's kind of the mantra for all that stuff. You know what I mean? Or what I'm learning, it's just like, yesterday, I was doing a lot of work and I didn't feel like I was really getting anywhere, and then I was kind of like, oh my God, I'm behind and I got to do this and I got to do that. My mind is catastrophizing. And then I was able to kind of zoom out or whatever for a moment and be like, yo, Will, like chill out. Like you're doing the best you can. And today was the day, but I showed up. I think that's a big thing, part of what we're talking about here. Keep showing up, not just for the race, right? But keep showing up in the race. You know what I mean? As like present, calm, relaxed, or at least just present at least, which really begins again, like we're just really talking about, like, again, you mentioned, Jim, the fundamentals, like mindfulness, just like, I'm just being aware of my awareness, it's like, and what my, and I'm being aware of my catastrophizing right now. It's like, how do I get out of that? It's like, well, many different tools, and it's like by being able to, again, stepping away from the energy of the ego, right? Which captures our mind, captures our body, puts us in a negative space, changes our vibration, like just fucking paints like the whole world as just like a bleak, dark place. We can get out of that. And then here you are on the other side with this wisdom of joy and what authentic joy means, and how pressure, right, actually, is like the pressure cooker in order to bring forth more of your humanity. So,
and when we have that mindfulness as part of our foundation, pressure doesn't automatically have to break us. It can further refine us.
Yes, great way to put it.
And one of my favorite phrases that I've heard in my own mindfulness journey to best nip that catastrophizing instinct in the bud is neurons that fire together, wire together.
Yeah.
Yep.
No. Yeah.
It's so
and that
good.
is so, it's
true.
Yeah, it's so good.
It is.
It's so
Right.
true. And one thing I want to also just quickly thank you. I'm not trying to blow smoke or any of this shit, but I've learned from listening through a lot of MTM podcasts that the doing of the hard shit is a muscle in itself that is
That's
true.
right.
Oh yeah. Wow. Yeah.
For
Yep.
sure.
Yeah. And you got to exercise that muscle. And there's easy ways to do it. Like embrace the suck of a cold shower.
What is it? The mid-anterior cingulate or something?
That is a foundational thing for me now too. The cold showers.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, put yourself in. Yeah. Again, do hard stuff. I don't want to go do the Stairmaster today, but I'm going to go do it.
What you just said there, Will.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
The Stairmaster itself is not that hard, right? It's getting to the Stairmaster.
Yeah.
It's doing it when you don't want to. And
getting through the first 15 minutes. Sometimes.
Like, I think Andrew Humer, and I'm probably messing up the part of the brain. I want to say it's the mid-anterior cingulate. I'm probably off on that. But he talks about how that muscle, quote unquote, is developed through not just doing hard things, but doing hard things that you don't want to, or doing hard things when you don't want to. That's why, like, and the reverse is true too. Like, you can build that muscle up, quote unquote muscle, or you can tear it down. Like, if you continually hit snooze every single morning, you're going to convince yourself that you can't get up in the morning. Yeah. So anyway, that's another whole episode in and of itself, but I'm glad that you brought that up, Jim, and you're definitely doing hard things.
Yeah.
Now before we get into the MS and fatherhood and what you're doing now with the guitar and weaving that into your keynotes, We talked about you're running a marathon post MS diagnosis. Let's talk about pre-diagnosis, Jim. What was your your relationship with pressure back then?
Most of it had to do with being in high pressure performance situations because for the past 15 years, and I'm still doing this while I pursue the Keynote concert artist. For the past 15 years, my bread and butter pays the mortgage. My passion has been performing a solo classical Spanish flamenco style guitar at like high ticket type private events. So weddings, corporate events. And then there's the other side. So where the pressure kicks in is, when you're playing a bride down the aisle, you're being the soundtrack to one of their, or anybody down the aisle, you're being the soundtrack to one of the biggest moments in their entire life.
Right.
It's a very singular occurrence.
Right.
And
in the moment too. Exactly. Now you get a takeover, or do over. Yeah. I'm
exactly.
Sorry.
And I do a lot of outdoor weddings. So if I'm playing something very delicate,
here we go.
Yeah, please, dude, please.
If I'm just playing something I'll make sure to play anything that's public domain as well. So if I'm going like, all of a sudden, here comes a fucking mosquito on my eye. Get
the fuck out of here.
Exactly. It's like, take that deep breath.
Right.
Force myself to smile through it. And
wow.
Because it's not their fault. It's not the wedding couple's fault that, they don't care. Well, maybe that's a harsh way to say it, but it doesn't matter. And that, like, my job is still to be the soundtrack to that moment. So
wow.
And it's those things, because you don't really learn that kind of thing in music school. You don't learn what's going to happen when
true.
A raindrops start falling on your thousands of dollar guitar or instrument, or when that mosquito lands on you and you feel it sucking your damn blood and you start itching like crazy, and that involuntary impulse is just to get the fuck away.
Yeah. Wow.
And then on the flip side of that, I talked about being the soundtrack to a very jubilant and joyous moment in somebody's life. I also do a lot of celebration of life ceremonies. Where
wow.
On the total flip side of that, if I'm doing my classical arrangement of, Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water, or, the Beatles, In My Life, or if I'm doing Amazing Grace and, something happens, like a big distraction happens, but it's only happening to me. And I think like a bug landing on you is another perfect example. It's only happening to me while everybody else, this in the context of a celebration of life ceremony, this is one of those shared reflections, quiet reflections, where it's announced that let's take, 3 minutes to quietly reflect. And while this is happening, our musician will be playing the song that was so near and dear to the deceased and their family. And like, I can't be playing something like that. Fuck a buck.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not gonna work.
That can't happen. And so I started to, and I wasn't really articulating the mindfulness aspect. I wasn't attaching that term to it at the time, but that's when I started learning, just through my performance situations, how mindfulness was helping me through these high pressure moments. And that was my relationship with performing under pressure, and how mindfulness was helping me through those moments. And then another big one that I still love doing, is for the past decade, a big passion of mine has been performing at memory care centers and assisted living facilities, where, especially the memory care centers, where, the residents are suffering from a memory debilitating disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, And these are just some of the most fascinating people I've ever met in my life. And they also, for the most part, have no filter.
Yeah, like a child in some ways.
Yeah. Which is so many things that just amaze me. And it can, what that can also mean is I can be playing my ass off, playing like, I could be just really killing it, but out of nowhere, a resident will say, "Nurse, wheel me out, please." Like really just shout it out. And that's not, and at first, when I started doing this about 10 years ago, it was, admittedly, it was kind of jarring because I didn't know what to expect going into it. It was my first time doing it.
Sure.
And so you learn that, you learn not to take it personally.
Yeah.
You learn that you learn that this is a unique type of pressure to not be thrown off by that. And you learn that there's joy to be found and very easily in, don't hone in on that one thing that just happened.
Yeah.
Because they probably just need to pee.
Yeah.
Right.
Or maybe they
they're
are
tired.
itching somewhere. Yeah, or they're tired, or they're itching somewhere that's hard for them to physically reach. It could be a number of things.
Yeah.
And these are things that I've learned from, communicating with the nursing staff afterwards, like any number of these scenarios.
Yeah.
But finding joy in a few other residents who at that same time as somebody loudly requesting to be wheeled out of the room, there's a few other residents who are tapping their foot, who are slowly bobbing their head.
Go. Yeah,
who are
they're grooving.
And afterwards, it's some of the stories that I've been told, it blows me away to this day. I'm playing my arrangement of Moon River, and a resident starts singing the words out loud as I'm doing an instrumental arrangement of it. And afterwards, that resident requests to be wheeled over by a young lady who I had since learned was the daughter of the resident. And this is someone who's suffering from Alzheimer's. And she said, "Jim, you played Moon River. That reminded me of my high school homecoming. Moon River was the theme song to that dance. And my date was a man named Butch. And let me tell you about Butch." And as this resident is telling me this, the daughter standing behind with her hands on the wheelchair, she starts tearing up.
I bet.
And then the daughter tells me, after the resident tells me that story, she says, "Jim, it's been really hard for us they're going through that process of cleaning out that resident's old condo because they're getting it ready to sell." And she says, "We've been cleaning it out and we found old shoebox of photos. And one of the photos we found was Mom, the resident, and a gentleman at what looked to very much be a high school dance, but we had no idea who it was. And she didn't know either by looking at the photo.
Wow.
But that song connected the dots."
Wow.
And I don't want to go too much off a tangent here, but fuck, man, the power of music.
Dude,
oh my God.
I bet that was powerful for you.
And music is one of the last things to go in the brain with memory debilitating patients. Music is one of the very last things to go.
Yeah.
Wow.
What is there's a country song, Ain't It Funny How a Melody Can Bring Back a Memory? And I tell you, man, to this day, I hear songs from, back in the early 80s, and I remember scenes exactly, scenes from where I was. Sad songs will come on and it will remind me of something that, I don't know. But anyhow, yes, man, holy cow, that must have been powerful, but also made you feel really good in that you were able to bring that memory back, even if it were just for a limited time for that resident. And then not only for the resident, but the daughter, you were able to see who, how much memory is still left in there. It may not come out, and it may be hard to tap into, but the memory is there. So, man, it's good. I applaud you for doing that work. it sounds like it's incredibly difficult, but also incredibly rewarding at times.
Oh,
yeah.
there's nothing like it. And for just the possibility of something like that happening, an experience like that happening for one of the residents, that has made it so easy for me to immediately not get thrown off by any type of distraction and just so easily tap back into that joy, because you know what the potential is for staying, for me on my end, for me staying grounded on the performative end. You know, if I allow myself to get thrown off by any distraction and I lose sight of that joy, I've taken away a potential poignant moment from these amazing residents, from these amazing people and their family. And that's
Yeah.
just not that, I'm not good with that.
Yeah, it's true.
They deserve
Yeah.
better.
Well, you're also living in service in that moment too. And you realize that, like, I'm here to facilitate, whatever, bring joy and happiness or peace or, and all that stuff in that moment, which is so critically important. And that's what a beautiful thing about music and the vibrations that it brings that's possible.
Hey everyone, if you're serious about leading with more clarity, more focus, and more resilience under pressure, we want to invite you into something we're building. We recently launched a new training company called Focus Now Training, and it's built around a simple idea that attention is your most valuable performance asset. And like any asset, it can be trained. As part of that, we created a weekly newsletter called Your Thursday 3 Things. It used to be the Frogman Mindfulness newsletter that has transitioned into the Focus Now Training newsletter, and it is specifically Your Thursday 3 Things, where every Thursday we send 3 carefully chosen practical takeaways connected to that week's Men Talking Mindfulness episode. So sometimes it's going to be a mindset shift, sometimes it's a tool, sometimes it's a resource, a reflection question, or something you can experiment with immediately. And the goal is simple: give you 3 things you can actually use that week. There's a free version you can subscribe to right away, and if you want to go deeper, there's a paid version with expanded tools, resources, and training insights beyond the paywall. And you can sign up at newsletter.focusnowtraining.com, and we'll also put the link in the episode description. Or the easiest way is just to text MTM, the letters MTM, to 33777, and we'll send the link straight to you. Because focus isn't accidental, it's trained. And that is exactly why we built Focus Now Training. So check that out. We appreciate you listening, and let's carry on with the show.
But here you are, like, you're on this path, and you're being the musician that you want to be. You're helping people, and then you get diagnosed with MS, which shifted everything that you're doing. Can you just take us down that road and like what the MS looked like, and then how you're, what that was like trying to plug back into life with the work that you do, and then kind of bringing yourself back from almost the depths of like, who am I now?
Man, that, especially that last part you mentioned, Will, about how it forces you to rethink your identity and what it is that makes up your identity. So it started in late 2021. I started losing vision in my left eye, and it wasn't exactly like going blind, but it was as if somebody had smeared a thick filter of, like, it was like everything I looked through in the left eye was like having a filter of thick Vaseline. So you can make out big shapes, and that was about it. However, that wasn't really affecting my guitar playing, so I didn't catastrophize about it too much, because I was like, I could still make my living. And that was the most important thing to me, because I was newly married by that time. And so I was already tuned into the notion that my decisions, what I do, is not just about me anymore. So,
Wow.
and so that was late 2021. And then in early 2022, I remember I was grocery shopping, and I live in the west suburbs of Chicago. So, we have the 4 seasons a year, standard kind of, well, standard for, I know, Will, you're in New York, and
Oh yeah, man. We're living we're living the winter right now, bro.
yep, that's right.
It's
That's
it's
right.
happening. It's happening anyway.
And so it's early 2022, and I'm grocery shopping, and I get out of my car, and I'm like, oh man, I shed my coat, and then I lose my hoodie, and I'm walking outside in jeans and a t-shirt, and feels like temperature of like 40 something degrees, and I was feeling overheated. And I'm like, this is weird. This is odd. But again, I didn't think too much of it. I thought maybe this is just some weird fluke. And then a couple weeks after that is when the thing happened that started to freak me out. I was performing luckily at a more low pressure type of gig. I was performing at a restaurant that I've been performing at monthly for the past at that point for the past 9 years. And so, I know everybody in the staff. I know most of the regulars and stuff. And so it wasn't playing somebody down the aisle or doing a sound reflection at a celebration. It was a much more low pressure situation. But I'm playing, and all of a sudden I started feeling this pins and needles sensation in my fretting hand. And if I was one of those musicians singer-songwriter playing 3 chords in the truth, as we like to say, it wouldn't really have been a big deal. But the way I play guitar with like more it requires a lot more dexterity up and down the neck, articulate style of guitar, classical flamenco, that kind of thing. That wasn't going to fly. So, and so it's like, what the hell? Like, well, what is this? What the hell? Now, believe it or not, I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and my immediate older brother was diagnosed with MS back in 2013.
Wow.
And so my family, for that reason, has already developed a very solid understanding of the disease. But at the same time, it's a snowflake disease. It doesn't hit anybody the same way twice. But because of our having that on our radar, made an appointment with a neurologist, got an MRI, and then on March 4th, 2022, which was actually the day of my 38th birthday, is when I was diagnosed.
Yes.
And when I thought about what my brother went through, which was for a good amount of time, he had to walk with a cane. He couldn't play. We're all musicians in the family. So my brother couldn't even play guitar. He had to basically cancel a lot of his solo acoustic type gigs because he couldn't even like fret a few chords effectively.
Wow.
And so my immediate, because that was my closest relationship to the disease, I immediately thinking, okay, that's going to be me now.
Right.
Right.
And so that night, I went through the whole "woe is me" phase, which I'm not really proud of, but I mean, it's human, right?
Yeah.
And so that night, and I'm diagnosed, I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, I'm crying, and my wife is consoling me, and I'm wondering what the next version of me is gonna look like. And then I go down the stupidest rabbit hole we could all go down, which is Googling medical stuff, right? And one of them, in my unhealthy rabbit hole, was I learned that according to the American Academy of Neurology, people with MS on average have a life expectancy immediately slashed by 7 years. And that felt like the biggest gut punch, because it's like, this wasn't self-inflicted.
Yeah.
This wasn't
it's not like you're smoking cigarettes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it felt like a big gut punch. And, so then I'm thinking about, I'm reaching out to, my really close friends and family, just like, hey, to the people who know me best, what do you think might make sense for like a different career path? Because it wasn't for nothing that I had built up a successful career as a freelance performing musician. It was paying the mortgage. I was able to buy a house with it. And
wow, great.
So like there's other skills that come along with that.
And at this point, you weren't able to play at all? I mean, is that like when it got at its height, you were just like, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So after I went through, good in just a second. So after I went through that, like when you're re-examining everything about your life and what does this mean going forward, not just for me, but again, for my family. And my wife and I were already talking about expanding our family. So again, it's not just me anymore. And it felt like the most responsible thing to do. This loud voice in my head was saying, you need to do a serious pivot. And I think we all have those moments in our lives where we have that loud voice that is really trying to steer us a certain way. And where that can get really scary is when that loud voice is also being really fucking pragmatic. It's making good points,
Yeah.
Like that it was making a really good point. But at the same time, for me, whenever there's that loud voice of, doubt and a lot of times negativity and restraint, there's also at the same time this whisper of purpose and resilience that's saying, but have you really tried everything? Have you really exhausted all of their options before you go this entirely different path?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, if I lean in on this whisper a little bit, it's saying you need to try to attack these symptoms head on. And when I first started to do that, it made things worse because I was trying to tackle everything at once. The overheating, the vision thing, the guitar stuff. It's like, okay, do it one at a time, man. Give yourself a chance. And that was also how I learned by living through that and experiencing that, how one of the best ways we can kind of perform under pressure and through pressure is just taking small steps. If we try to take this colossal thing head on, we're probably screwing ourselves over as a result. Take one step at a time, make it palatable, digest one thing, and then go to the next thing. And so for me, it was with the eye, we learned that I had a lesion I have 30 total lesions, 24 in my brain, in that area, and then 6 on my cervical spine. And one of those lesions was actually on my left retina, left eye retina. And so through a number of a week of salumedrol infusions with basically steroid infusions, that's what basically cured that, at least for the time being.
Wow.
It's gonna crop up again, but it's been effective for 3.5 years, and I'll take it.
Nice.
Because if you have like progressive MS, a more serious form of MS, sometimes you need to do steroid infusions every month, and that just then your bones become glass.
Right. Yeah.
So it's so joy to be found in that I have the preferred version of MS, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so that was the vision thing. Then it was the guitar thing. For me, that was the big one because this is my living as well. It's my passion. It's my profession. And so, okay, every time I tilt my neck down to look at my fretting hand is what triggered, if I'm having an MS flare up, which are always unpredictable, if it's flaring up, that's where that pins and needles feeling starts throughout the entire left side of my body, and it carries through the fretting hand, and I lose a facility in how I play the guitar. And so it's like, okay, then just don't look down at your hand while you play. And so I went back to the hundreds of songs in my repertoire and just got comfortable playing them without looking down at my hand, which kind of breaks the fundamental rule you're taught as an instrumentalist, is always have a keen eye on your fretting hand to maintain command, to maintain control.
Mm.
And that was what part of the journey was relearning how to play. It's just not, because it's involuntary after 20 plus years of playing guitar. I was just looking down at the fretting hand. And so there was getting comfortable doing that. And then it was getting comfortable at the next level, getting comfortable doing that in those high pressure situations that we spoke about earlier, weddings, celebration of life ceremonies. And as I was doing that started to light this fire of like, holy shit, I didn't think I could ever play this kind of stuff without looking down. But I was never put in a situation in my life where I had to do that.
Yeah.
And so that very much informed the decision to try and do my first marathon. Because then it becomes that question of, all right, I'm a little fired up now. What else am I
Yeah.
capable of
Right.
that I immediately ruled out before because, my guitar student told me that no human should run 26.2 miles, and in retrospect, it's like, yeah, but animals don't have a set training regimen to best prepare them for such an endeavor,
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
right? And so that helped reframe the whole marathon thing for me. But MS has ultimately unlocked things in myself that I didn't think I would really be capable of, and in a way, it's really been this amazing blessing
Mm.
because it's completely changed my mindset. It's put me in touch with the very concept of mindfulness
Why?
because it's otherwise it would be so easy for me, and it was almost like I would have an out for being mopey,
All right. Yeah.
for feeling sorry for myself, for not trying to do things like a marathon, for not
Mm.
for not doing the playing guitar in this new way.
Yeah.
It would
Well,
be an
what
immediate out.
a core question I'm really working with. I just finished a book called Four Questions, and it's like one thing that in this case, everybody's listening, everyone that's struggling in some way, instead of playing the victim, pull yourself out of the victim by asking, it's like, what is this teaching me? It could be very, in your case, like, with you talk about, oh, I can play a different style of guitar. I mean, that's like, this is teaching me that I'm not limited in this way of playing, right? And then look at where it took you with the marathon. It's a very mindful question because you have to zoom out and objectively look within or look at the circumstance as a whole, right? Instead of being attached to outcomes, attached to ego, attached to, victimhood or whatever, so yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry.
And
I
those
cut
are
you off,
those are
Jim.
all the things that are so so dangerously easy to fall into.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it takes training. If we're not, that's what all mindfulness is, not just something, it could be modeled for us by great parents, if we have them. But even then, it's like, it still takes practice to show up because like what really is important about continually developing and taking on a mindfulness practice is like the world is going to try to do everything it can, right? And the ego usually often is working against us. That's why it's called something else than the self itself. We have to have something to keep ourselves in check, to keep ourselves being present, to focus on what matters, right? To get the lessons in life and understand life, as a classroom, right? Instead of it being, like in a playground, I guess, instead of it being, something that is always trying to, be threatening or degrade us or take us down or diminish our life in some ways.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that grounding mechanism.
yeah, you mean within mindfulness itself, or just the practice? Oh, the practice, like coming back. Is that what
Yeah,
you mean? Right, exactly.
absolutely.
Is that yeah? It's great, great, interesting way to put it. Like mechanism. It's like it's like something that we wake up. Is like a machine, right? It's like a mechanism that we put in play in order to like fine tune our engine.
You know, when we get sick, whether that's a cold or something like MS, or other ways, uh, we're taught at that point a lesson, right? You mentioned, Jim, that this wasn't self-inflicted, right? It's something that happened without you having any input on it. And again, when we have colds and et cetera, we get things that we don't have any control over. That illness, that sickness can teach us that our control is limited. Or maybe it's not limited. Maybe it's just in different areas what we control, right? We can control
Mm,
how we respond. We can say, just like Will just said, what is this teaching us? Why is this happening for me? What can I learn, right?
there you go. Yeah.
What did MS reveal to you about control that maybe most people don't learn until later?
It's a lot of what you just said, John, that the things we can't control, whether it's, an unstable environment in whatever way, we could always control how we respond. And that goes back to, like the marathon, just hobbling through the last 5 miles instead of, requesting that medical card. It was, I could still play my instrument if I do it this way, but that is within my control. When I was training for the marathon too, because of the overheating, I couldn't do my distance training runs if the sun was out because I would overheat so much. Even if it was, like dusk, 6:15 a.m. If the sun was just peeking out a little bit, I couldn't do the distance runs, the 12 to 20 miles. But I could control waking up at 2:30 in the morning, beating the sunrise. And
wow, there you go.
And I could also control how I felt about that concept in general. Because at first, it was a little woe is me. It's like, oh God, who else? This sucks, man. Nobody else has to do it this way. But you know what? Once I got through the first couple of 2:30 a.m. distant runs, it was another thing that's just lit this new type of fire inside of me. It's like, holy shit, there is a path forward to.
There you go. Yes.
To doing this, and how fucking lucky am I as a result that even with this. What's an incurable progressive autoimmune disease, I might be able to run a fucking marathon. And that is such a blessing. How lucky am I? And on a larger scale, and Will, I love that you use the term zoom out, because I've been using that term for
it's essential.
It's one of my favorites.
Absolutely. And when I zoom out and I just get outside of myself a little bit, first of all, I don't ever feel sorry for myself at all, because look, at the end of the day, we all have our shit. MS is part of mine, but we are all dealing with something, be it physical, mental, spiritually, psychologically, like emotionally. And in that respect, I feel this great sense of comfort in a way, because like we're all in this together.
Great point.
Like my journey isn't more or less extravagant than most other people's, or impressive or depressing or whatever adjective you want to attach to it. But man, just it goes back to that notion of what we control. And the biggest thing for me has been just controlling how I perceive this situation, controlling how I perceive this occurrence.
Control what you can control, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, which is just a lot of is managing yourself, managing your breath. You know what I mean? Like being in the moment. Like it's like the only way. Like, I mean, there's go check.
Well, a lot of us, when we are kind of doing the woe is me, whether it's because we're sick or because we, lost some money or because we have a tough relationship, whatever the case may be. Like you said, we all have our own battles that we're fighting that nobody knows anything about. Nobody else knows anything about. Well, a lot of us, when we are in that spot, we cope by numbing, right? Scrolling through social media, doom scrolling, snacking. I know that's a big drinking, smoking. Digging yourself or, digging yourself into work or sinking yourself into work rather. How does that numbing in your perspective, in your opinion, how does that numbing kill joy and presence? I mean, that's what we've talked about a lot on this show is joy and presence. How does that way of coping kill that?
So the reason I just realized I got kind of a mopey face as you were speaking about, specifically with the scrolling. Fuck, I hate admitting this, but it's true. So our baby girl is almost 10 months old, and she's our first. And there have been times where, oh my God, you see she crawled again? No, I didn't, because I was like,
oh shit,
looking up something on my phone that is so incredibly unimportant. Like I'm looking through Chicago Bulls trade rumors. Who fucking cares in comparison, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh God.
Well, it's again human, man. So don't beat yourself up
exactly.
about it, right?
You're right, and you're right.
You're gonna have a lot of those moments as a father.
Yeah, but
as a
also
parent.
but what's the lesson here, right?
Yeah, there's
It's
a great
like,
lesson.
and also it's right. What is it teaching me? And it's like, and being more mindful, it's like, that's when we become, aware of the habit. And just by talking about it, then you can you could change the relationship to it. It's like, it's always like what I really like about this conversation, it's really helping us or breaking down for our listeners. It's like, mindfulness is in the moment and it's a process, right? It is a certain practice, a certain mechanism you put into play, to kind of start your day is usually the best time to do that. But it's like it's a refinement all the time. And like, it's not just, I'm mindful, so therefore now, I'm perfect, like, or I'm always going to do things right. That's never the case. It's like, it's a slow incremental change. If you're willing to go down that path of change, right, to realize like what's important to me, where do I want to focus my time and attention, right, and what do I want like my day to be like, if you will, or do the best I can to access that day. And you just keep, it's like, it's a give and take. It comes from, being kind to yourself, like John said, being gentle, right, understanding that we are human, right, that things are going to get in the way, that I do have this ego that I'm constantly trying to manage. And it's just this constant, and the more you play with, with all those kind of things that I talked about, but also have something that grounds you every day, like you're just every day, you're going to get a little bit better, and keep showing up in the moment, keep showing up as best you can, and it just grows and grows and grows, and sometimes it doesn't feel like you're doing anything, but if you look back over like a 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, a lifetime, it's just like, oh, that one moment slowly connected the dots to where I am here. And it's like, it's just how it works.
And it continues to amaze me that, first of all, I feel so, I'm so excited that I feel like I'm such an amateur with the mindfulness thing, because that just informs me how much more room there is to grow. And
Yeah,
that's
we
so
all
exciting.
are. We all
It's
are.
all growth, man. Yeah.
And one way I recently noticed that was, right now, right around this time of year is what, like I perform at a lot of weddings each year. And this is what the people in the wedding industry refer to as engagement season, between like Christmas and around Valentine's Day. And the way that'll work with me, as essentially in the wedding industry, I'm a music vendor. Okay. And so
Yeah.
usually I won't get the first contact. Because people, when you're planning your wedding, you have to venue, caterer, so musician is usually not at the top of the to-do list. But I promise this has to do with mindfulness. And so what I'm noticing in how mindfulness is serving me so well, and as a result, my family so well, and our stability so well, is that in the past, when when a potential client would push back about my pricing,
Yeah.
I would immediately fall into this scarcity mindset, which is unfortunately so common with artistic types of,
Yeah. I feel that, man.
yeah, right. And I would do something where I would immediately get on the defensive about trying to, like, either get defensive about my pricing, or immediately be like, oh, wait, let's say that person is the only inquiry I have for that specific date. And I have this scarcity mindset of, oh shit, what if I don't book that third Saturday in June? Because obviously if someone like me, who's made a big percentage of my income is coming from playing weddings, those don't usually happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Right.
Usually
Saturday. Yeah.
Exactly. Will. And so that one date in the summer, which is a popular time to get married, is so crucial. Like, if I don't book that date, there's so much money I'm missing out, that my family's missing out of. So going back to, if a client is inquiring about that date and has pushback on what I quote them, I would usually get so afraid of, which means I would lower my price.
Sure.
And then I've done myself a disservice, and actually, in the end, the client a disservice, because am I really going to show up as the best version of myself if I've devalued myself going
I was
into
just
it?
thinking that too, man. Totally.
And you've also
And so-
done your other clients a disservice because you're charging them
Exactly,
twice as much or whatever. So it's
exactly, John.
rate integrity.
Exactly. And so instead of what mindfulness, where that kicks in for me in this situation, is instead of going into that scarcity mindset, instead of immediately lowering my price to increase my chance of booking this crucial date, I take a breath, I calmly restate my value. And you know what? If it doesn't book, then I can feel good about, John, that what you said, that the integrity. I've done well by my existing clients. I could feel that much better about going into my performance and how present I am at their big day, because I know that deep down inside, I did well by them. I honored their big day by not devaluing myself to somebody else.
Right. Yeah. And lowering your energy. Yeah.
Exactly. And I very much connect that whole process to mindfulness.
Let's talk about what it is that you offer there. So, I talked about you doing keynote concerts, right?
Yes.
That's not something that you hear very often. Tell people, our listeners, what a keynote concert experience, what it is, what it feels like, what happens in the room, and who's it for typically.
Yeah. A keynote concert, let's say we take a 1 hour block of time for a keynote program. It'll be the format I use is 3 stories, and at the end of each story, so like 3 acts, if you will, at the end of each story is a musical performance that will very much be in context with that story. And throughout, there are those tangible takeaways. For example, to get to A, B, and C, do X, Y, and Z. That's every keynote, though, right? That's the information. And there are people who have much more extravagant backgrounds in corporate or whatever, who can be way more detailed about the nitty-gritty of the information. But I believe that there's so many people who don't exactly remember they don't take away so much what you taught them or what data you've presented to them, but they will take away how you made them feel.
Exactly.
And that's where the keynote concert format really kicks in for me, which is what really drew me to it. The impetus for all of it was wanting to make a deeper impact with my music, with a performative part of my career. And anecdotally, before I started doing keynote concerts, just anecdotally having conversations with people about, things like relearning to play the guitar and the MS and the marathon. And I got really good feedback saying, have you ever thought about public speaking? And I hadn't, because I couldn't ever see myself going up there and walking people through a slide deck on PowerPoint. And there's very much a time and place for that. There's a reason it's standardized, but it wouldn't be authentic to me. But when I started thinking about it as far as, the storytelling part, which I've very much gotten used to doing, by the way, from those a decade ago, from those memory care centers, because they didn't want to hear just recital. They wanted to hear about the music. They wanted to hear about me, about my connection to all of it. They demanded much more than just, instrumental background recital music. It was another beautiful thing about those residents having zero filter. They'll tell you exactly what they want.
0 apps given.
And so that was actually, in retrospect, that was actually the far back impetus of getting used to public speaking. It was that trial by fire thing.
Yeah.
Just doing it on the spot because that's what they needed from me. And so, yeah, that's the format of the keynote concert. Story, song, story, song, story, song. Again, there are those tangible takeaways. And then what I really do my best to bring out are the intangible takeaways, like how I made them feel. From talking about performing under pressure, I want to walk the walk while I'm up there. Like, here's this crazy ass thing on the guitar, like up and down the neck and stuff. And before I do the third and final song, I said, you may or may not have noticed, but I don't look down at my guitar while I'm playing. And this is why. And I had a crossroads where I could either perceive this as an opportunity to grow, because I'm a better musician now that I don't look down at my hands, actually.
Interesting.
Which is crazy, because I can emote more. I can connect more.
Right. And there's more trust, I'd imagine, that comes along with it too. You're more freedom. You know what I mean? You're not like checking yourself, just like, fuck it, I could do this.
Exactly. It's not attached. I'm no longer attached to the academia end of
your teacher's method. You developed your own.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. Like we had George Mumford on, and he was talking about, he worked with Kobe Bryant, and he's Kobe was a little bit, he didn't have like his authentic flow of like his release. And he's like, well, why don't we find that? And he found his release, his own way of playing the instrument of basketball. And he just became one of the greatest of all time. You know what I mean? Because he came from this deep, authentic experience of expression, instead of like, oh, it has to be this way. And I think it's obviously important to work within certain confines, right? But you're still like, to really, and the name of his book, George Mumford, unlock. It's to really unlock, you have to get down, I forget the word, beautiful word, that autotelic personality it is. You have to unleash your autotelic personality, right? Which is like really who you are at your essence. And without doing that, like you're functioning at a lower point of your potential, is how I'll say it. But it's just really, it really works. And I think like what, we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes, Jim, but like, that's what really speaking, that's what I think the whole story is kind of getting to that place. It's like, use the practices in order to, find yourself and use the obstacles, whether it's a marathon race, whether it's, my God, dealing with the diminishing effects of your entire being with MS, but finding your way through, learning the lessons. And it's just like, this just helps us develop more character, put our fucking ego on a shelf, and just try to like take all those lessons and just like what, and again, like, just like in early, when you started with the marathon, it's just like, I could do this. I have what it takes. I know I do. And then it's like, and then joy, right? And then this fountain of joy comes through, that's just like that like spontaneously that surprised you. It's like, wow. So,
and I think you have to, I think so many times we have to challenge ourselves in a way to 100% find the joy.
Absolutely. That's the only way that really joy comes on. Like, you're not gonna experience joy if you're doing the same shit as yesterday.
No.
You're just not, you're just not. So it's, and when I'm at my
most aggravated, it physically feels hard to smile my way through it, which is so, when I zoom out, it seems so crazy, but in those moments, and that's where I just really am such a believer in locking and having authentic joy as that grounding mechanism. One of the ways I get there is just smile your way through it, just chuckle, because when it feels the hardest to do that, that's when it's fucking needed the most.
Well, that has a physiological effect when you smile,
well, that's going to come into play as a dad, man. Trust me, believe me,
man. Dad wisdom going on. Dad wisdom.
Well, let's wrap it up with this, Jim. If someone was to remember just one sentence from today,
there you go,
what would you want it to be?
Two things just popped up immediately.
Go for it.
All right.
Go for it.
Well, two things then. Let's go with that.
Yeah. It's, you can't control the environment. You can control how you react to it. For me, again, I can't control MS, but that's with me MS. That's with me and MS. This can be a number of unpredictable, mostly unwelcomed, unexpected things, but you can control how you react to it, and that can be a foundation laying response if you give yourself the chance, if you give yourself the opportunity to be open to it, if you give yourself the opportunity to just smile through it or find the joy in whatever this unexpected, stressful potentially fucked up thing is because there is joy, and it may not be apparent right away, but the joy can just be in the possibility of a lesson to be learned. That might have sounded way too weird, but
No, not at all, bro.
On point, my man. On point. On point.
Not at all.
Wow.
And then in much simpler terms, the other thing that comes to mind, the takeaway is just wherever you are listening to this, wherever you're doing, like, you're doing fine.
Yeah. There you go.
You're doing fine. I think we all just need to also allow ourselves to be kind to ourselves and be like, you know what? I effed up here or there, and I wasn't my best self in this situation. Like, for me, it's that example of scrolling through my phone when my baby girl was, getting one of her first successful crawls. It's like, dude, that doesn't make you a shitty dad all of a sudden.
Wow. Well said.
Well
played.
I'm doing fine. I know my heart's in the right place. I know I love her desperately, and I'm there for her. So don't. And if I, by the way, if I allow myself to be mopey about it, she feeds off that energy.
Yeah, you got
right?
point.
So I need to, so I owe her to be at my best self, and my wife to be at my best self, and be able to forgive myself for those kind of situations. So
yeah, for sure,
Excellent.
man. Self-forgiveness, one of the best things you can give yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, brother, this has been awesome. If somebody wanted to hire you for one of these Keynote concerts, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, so it's going to be JimPeronaSpeaks.com.
Love
Jim Perona Speaks. JimPerona. Sharona.
Not Sharona, not Corona. It's the Perona.
There it is. I don't know, Jim, am I the first person ever to...
You are the first person that...
Wow, John, you're a genius, dude. I didn't even think about that. Wow.
All right, there you go. JimPeronaSpeaks.com. Jim, thank you so much for being here with us today, man. This has been fantastic. Thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for the joy you're putting out in the world and the attitude that the attitude, the aura, whatever you want to call it, man. I can feel it just having spoken with you here virtually. So I can only imagine what people walk away from after your Keynote concerts or just hanging out with you, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. Thank you so much. Will, anything?
No, I've said plenty. Just big gratitude, big thanks, Jim. And Jim's like, this is almost like one of our almost like a listener episode. Like Jim is, he's been listening to our show for a while, and he's just got on the path of 3-4 years ago, and it's great to just have a conversation with another mindful man on the path, and seeing where mindfulness has taken him, and also what it's probably the suffering that he's also avoided by being more mindful, and rescue yourself out of that the ego and that victim and scarcity mentality that just tears it all down. So thank you for sharing everything.
There you go.
Jim.
Can I share one more thought?
Yeah, go for it.
Right now, I am overwhelmed by the concept of what I do in my mission to with music, and that's also involves composing music and putting it out there for the world, and then it's there forever, and it's for everybody to receive as they will. You guys are doing the same thing with this podcast, because you do these podcasts, and then you put them out there, and then they're there forever. I am so moved by just that notion that we're, in our own ways, we are putting a very personal, very crucial part of ourselves, and very much an artistic on both ends part of ourselves for people to just receive, and that it's gonna be part of our legacies.
Yeah,
there's no way it can't be, and that's so beautiful to me. And so thank you so much for what you guys do. Thank you for this gift, and this was awesome. Fucking A.
Fucking A,
man.
Fucking A.
Hey, no better way to wrap it up than
I
that.
know, right?
So, hey, for our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Our listeners, our community, our those who watch it. Hey, thank you for tuning in. If you got something out of the show, this episode, please share it with your family, your friends, anyone that you think could get
leave a review.
Yeah.
Maybe, share it with your social, Sorry, John, to cut you off. I'm like,
no.
I'm like a shameless plugger on the fucking show, Chip.
Hey, and check out, Will and I also have a new company starting.
Yes. Focus Now Training.
By the time this comes out, we're going to be officially launching March 3rd. Right. Focus Now Training.
Now
check
I'm getting
us
nervous.
out.
Now the pressure's on over here, Jim. I'm like, fuck, man. It's all good.
We'll just get some joy out of it.
I know. We're going to get a lot of joy out of this.
That's right.
Thank you,
Right.
everybody. Thanks for listening. It's the longest ending ever, but here we go. Thanks, guys. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.